You don't feel strong. Not really. Most days, it feels like you're just holding things together, doing what you have to do, getting through one moment after another. You overthink conversations long after they've ended. You replay things you said, things you should have said, things you wish you could take back. Sometimes, you feel mentally exhausted without understanding why, like your mind never truly rests. And when people talk about mental strength, you probably don't see yourself in that picture. You imagine someone calm, confident, unshaken, someone who always knows what to do, someone who doesn't struggle the way you do, someone who isn't constantly questioning themselves. But what if that image is wrong? What if mental strength doesn't look like certainty or control? What if it looks a lot more like you? Because real mental strength is often invisible. It doesn't always look impressive from the outside. It doesn't announce itself. In fact, it can feel like the opposite. It can feel like doubt, like sensitivity, like being deeply affected by things others seem to ignore. That's why so many people overlook it in themselves. They're searching for strength in the absence of struggle, believing that if they were truly strong, things would feel easier. But that's not how it works. Strength often exists right in the middle of difficulty, not outside of it. So if you've ever felt like you're not strong enough, there's a good chance you've been measuring yourself the wrong way. One of the clearest signs of mental strength is something you probably dismiss as just life. You keep going, even when things feel heavy, even when your energy is low, even when nothing feels particularly exciting or meaningful, you still move forward. It might not look impressive. It might not feel powerful. Sometimes it feels slow, messy, and uncertain. But the fact that you continue anyway is not something small. Many people shut down when things get overwhelming. They avoid, they disconnect, they stop trying in ways that aren't always visible. But you don't fully stop. Even on your worst days, there's still a part of you that keeps showing up. And that quiet persistence is one of the strongest forms of resilience. This might seem like weakness, but it's actually a sign of depth. You question yourself. You reflect on your actions, your words, your decisions. You think about how you affect other people. You wonder if you handled things the right way. To you, this feels like overthinking. It feels like insecurity. But what it really shows is awareness. It means you're not moving through life on autopilot. You're paying attention. You're trying to understand yourself and your impact. People who never question themselves might seem confident, but they often lack growth. Reflection is uncomfortable, but it's also what allows you to evolve. And the fact that you do it, even when it's exhausting, says a lot about your inner strength. You don't just experience things on the surface. When something matters to you, you feel it fully. Emotions don't pass through you lightly. They stay, they linger, they make an impact. For a long time, you might have seen this as a flaw. Maybe you've told yourself you're too sensitive, too emotional, too affected by things that shouldn't matter so much. But feeling deeply is not a weakness. It means you're connected to your experiences, to other people, to life itself. The truth is, it takes strength to feel everything and not shut down. It's easier to become numb, to disconnect, to stop caring. But you haven't done that. You still feel, even when it's uncomfortable. And that is a form of courage. Even when you're hurt, you still try to understand. You think about why someone acted the way they did. You look for reasons, for context, for meaning behind their behavior. This doesn't mean you excuse everything. It doesn't mean you accept being treated poorly. But your instinct is not to immediately judge or close off. You try to see the bigger picture. That kind of empathy requires emotional capacity. It means you're able to step outside your own perspective, even when it would be easier to stay inside your pain. And that ability is not something everyone has. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying a lot internally. Not just responsibilities, but thoughts, emotions, expectations, pressure. And maybe you feel that kind of tiredness more often than you'd like to admit. But here's the important part. You're still here. You haven't given up on yourself. You still care about your life, your future, your growth, even if it doesn't always feel hopeful. Being tired doesn't mean you're weak. It often means you've been strong for a long time without a break. And continuing despite that fatigue is something most people underestimate. You pick up on things other people overlook. Subtle changes in someone's tone, small details in conversations, the energy in a room, the way someone says something, not just what they say. This awareness can feel overwhelming. It can make situations more complex, more intense. But it also means you're deeply present and perceptive. You're not disconnected from your environment. You're tuned into it. And while that can be exhausting, it's also a sign of a mind that is constantly observing, processing, and understanding more than it lets on. Even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's slow, you keep trying to become better. You reflect, you adjust, you learn from your experiences. You don't just go through things, you try to make sense of them. Growth isn't always visible. It doesn't always feel like progress. Sometimes it feels like confusion, like questioning, like starting over again and again. But the desire to grow, to understand yourself, to improve your life, that doesn't come from weakness. It comes from strength. It comes from a part of you that refuses to stay the same. After everything you've felt, everything you've gone through, you could have shut down. You could have stopped caring, stopped trusting, stopped opening up. But you didn't. You still feel. You still care. You still hope, even if it's quiet, even if it's fragile. And that might be the strongest thing about you. The reason you don't feel strong is not because you're lacking something. It's because you've been looking for strength in the wrong places. You've been measuring it by how little you struggle, how confident you feel, how in control everything seems. But real strength often looks like effort, like persistence, like feeling everything and still moving forward. It looks like you. So maybe you're not as weak as you think. Maybe the things you've been criticizing in yourself are actually the signs you've been looking for. And maybe, without realizing it, you've been strong this whole time.